Good afternoon and welcome to the second tutorial for the Herodesigner mod. You'll see yourself looking at the location of where I keep Herodesigner and Herodesigner. You'll see that here is what you would know as the JSON exporter.hdE. It has a different name here, but it's the same file. That is in my Herodesigner area. Also, in addition, you'll notice that I have a character loaded and it's charged Crusader from my campaign. He's got a fairly broad range of skills, perks, talents, no martial arts, but he does have a significant amount of powers and complications. Right, assuming that you've installed the HDE file and you're ready to export, let's look at how we do that. We come to current character, we go to export and we set export format. It brings up this Reynolds 6E full combat record. There we go. We select that. We then do current character, export, export to file. When we do that, we're asked to export a file with a .json extension. It's just a text file. It's got a different extension at the end, but it just contains text. We agree to that, and we overwrite the copy that already exists. That pretty much finishes us with Herodesigner. Obviously, you'll have built the character in Herodesigner, but now we're moving on from it. So, if we come out of here, and instead we go to an editor, let's have a look at the inside of one of these files. If you look at the inside of the file, it tells you the name of the character, it tells you their strength, dex, so on and so forth. It's a whole load of text basically, and that text defines the character. Even without Herodesigner, if you've got one of these files and someone's strength has changed and you can't get to Herodesigner, you can just come in here and change their strength. You can come in here and change how much they fly, combat and non-combat. You could enter a new skill in. Just copy what's already there and change it. Obviously, don't get carried away, and things get much more complex by the time you get down to attacks and rolls. But suffice to say, with a little bit of thought, it's fairly straightforward to work out what's going on. It's quite descriptive. Name, type, damage, range, input, level, endurance, active cost, base cost. All of those things are fairly straightforward. And you'll also see it covers lightning reflexes. Okay, so that's the file, and what you'd be expected to do is most probably on your computers, open it on using Notepad, one of the standard Windows editors, or if you're on a Mac or Linux you'll have your own editors available, which you'll already know. Simply go into the editor and do ctrl-A, ctrl-C, so copy all, and then once you're happy with that, go into. So now we've managed to get our JSON file, and we've got the text of that file with our cut and paste. Let's look at how we're going to use it in Tabletop Simulator. The first thing that we've got to do is to go into the notebook. Now the notebook has a number of coloured tabs, and usually each tab can only be seen by the player of that colour. So, the first thing that we're going to want to do up at the top is to add a new one for Charged Crusader. So we click there and we type Charged Crusader. Click over here, you see the title goes in there, and then we change it. As I'm the games master, I'm going to set it to black. It would be quite possible for you to set it to whatever player colour was relevant. And then we paste the file in like so. Okay, so having got that file, we click X and it's now in there. And then the next quick question is, how do we get that content onto these controllers? So each controller has a name. If you hover over it, it will tell you what its name is. we take Soldier 4, which is its current name, and we right click, and you can see there's a small field here that you can edit. You delete Soldier 4 and you type Charged Crusader. Exactly the name of the character that you put into the title of the notebook. So if you've written something silly and stupid or humorous, that's exactly what you're going to have to type there. So we click away and it's now Charged Crusader. Next thing we do is we start to look here. You can see it says load character. If we click that and everything's gone right, which it has, it loads Charged Crusader. And at this point we can see his primary stats. Right, so if we hover over, you'll see that strength 13, roll 12 or less. All of those stats are clickable. So if you click them, you get a roll. And if you open up the secondary stats, these are not clickable. They certainly don't generate rolls. But you can see all the important statistics, including OCV, DCV, MCV, which is OMCV, DMCV, speed, physical defense resistance, energy defense with resistant value, recovery, body, stun and endurance. But it'd be pretty tedious if you had to sit here as a GM sitting on top of this controller all the time trying to run each individual character step by step, moving amongst them, doing it that way. So this little green button up here is your friend. You click on it and the character becomes free floating. And you can move around the table, go wherever you wish, do whatever you want, and it stays there. If you don't want that particular character anymore, you hit the green button and it puts it back. So this rips off the combat record and lets it be taken with you, so you can head off. You obviously are now completely free floating, and you can have as many of these as the GM as there are controllers, so there's 10, so you can have 10 on your screen. Right, okay, in addition to that, let's start looking at what else you can do with it. So at the moment you've got CV, combat value, and mental combat value. Which one do you use if you try and hit someone? Well, see that little white dot there? That's the one you're currently using, so this will use CV, combat value. If you click on MCV, the dot moves, and it's a switch, and you can just flick it back and forward, as often as you like, moving between the two. And it will use whichever one you currently have selected. So let's close those two tabs, go on to the third tab, movement. This shows you type of movement within each icon. Hopefully they're self-explanatory: running, swimming, leaping and flying. Note the leaping guy is actually falling, and the reason he's falling is because a guy who's leaping up looks really similar to a guy who's flying. So he's chosen to be caught mid-picture of falling. It shows the combat and non-combat value that you have for each of those types of movement. And although the next stage isn't implemented in the turn controller yet, you can actually select one and it will become your standard movement mode. And what that will do is it will also write to the log and note in the log that you have changed to whatever type of movement. The reason for that is the log will actually become a complete recording or record of what actually activity took place during the game, and certainly during combat. And doing that gives you a record of when and whatever you did during combat for later on if someone wants to write it up. Next one is change, and this allows you to change the statistics that you've got, or restore them if you have changed them. Next one is distance. We're not going to do much with distance till later. It's much more combat orientated. Skills. Skills are handy, so there's perception 14 or less. If we click on that, you can see the dice roll a roll, and we get told that we succeeded by 4 against the target of 14. Once again, nice green text telling us success. You can also see all of the skills that the character have are down here, including some that aren't really anything to do with roles, such as English. It's got it there so it's easy for you to reference. They have a natural score or natural skill level of 0, so if you click them you will fail. See? However, if you do manage to get it to succeed, please do tell me, and I most probably would like to see a screen capture of it, because it shouldn't be working like that. If you want to move quickly and easily, you can right click on these upward downward arrows and jump to the top or to the bottom of the list of skills and choose the one you want. In addition, if you get benefits or negatives against your roll, you can alter the target number for your perception by clicking here. So this increases the target number for perception by 2. If I click that, you'll see that the target number, although it's 14, is actually a target of 16 when modified. So you can do that, or put negatives in, -2. So the target number has now become 12 from 14. And throughout the entire Hero System mod, you'll see these targets appear whenever you're making a roll aimed towards targeting. Right, let's move on from there and look at Manoeuvres. Manoeuvres allow us to choose a combat manoeuvre and enact it. So here is a Haymaker. If you hover above it, it will give you a full breakdown of what it does. Half phase, 0 CV, -5 DCV, so on and so forth. And if you click it, because it's got a crosshairs next to it, it means it's an attack. It will attempt that attack. So let's do that. That's interesting, because actually I left OMCV switched. So as you can see, it tried to use your offensive mental combat value. Simply come back to here, click over to the dots on CV, and then make the roll again. And there you go, OCV. With DCV 5 or less would have hit. Now that's quite convenient. So any player can roll the dice, and you will immediately see down here in green, so your eyes go straight towards it, hopefully. It is possible to change it for people who are colourblind. You can come down here and you'll see DCV of 5. That DCV of 5 obviously tells you what the DCV of the target was. So if one of the players is attacking an NPC, if you know he's got DCV 5 or less, then you know he's hit. So it's at a glance, really. It's always going to be green though, because there is really a no foul. You'll hit some bad DCV of some nature, unless you roll a 3, and I think it goes to red then. But natural 3s are fairly rare. And all of your stats are in here, all of your manoeuvres, including if you have martial arts, you'll find the martial arts manoeuvres are there. Right. Those martial arts manoeuvres are all here, including the optional ones. In addition, any martial arts you've got will appear here also, and they always come in at the top. So the things you've chosen as your character's main interest in martial arts are always at the beginning. Moving on from there, we have location. So location is for fantasy hero and kind of hero level games, and you can choose a body location and roll the dice, and it will tell you body shot, you hit the chest, or whichever location that you manage to hit. So I've got the thigh there. That rolls automatically for you. I don't use that much because I normally play champions, but it's there for anyone who plays Fantasy Hero or Espionage, Justice Incorporated, you name it. Quick roll, really convenient rolling mechanism. So I can come into here, just type 10d6 and hit the dice roll at the end. 10 dice will be rolled and it will give me the total and the body. Very convenient. I can add a half d6 and I can even add, do that, there we go. So there's a half d6, notice the italics at the end there for the half dice. Or I can simply deduct 1 from the roll. So I have it as a 1d6 minus 1 roll. Come here and make that. Okay, don't forget there's always a minimum of 1. So, closing that, we move on to the dice roller. Now, if you had an attack in your Herodesigner file, it will be brought into here along with your stats. So, Charged Crusader has a number of attacks. He's got the Electro Shield, he's got a 4d6, 4/4 Entangle, he's got a Charged Bolt at 10d6, Ball Lightning at 5d6. And if we scroll down, he's even got killing attached, which you can tell with skull. So normal attacks, dice, killing attack, skull. And that one's overcharge bolt. So he's got a 3d6 killing attack. Whenever he's hit, and the to hit's always at the top, whenever he's got a to hit, if he successfully hits, which is in this case he has, he can roll the damage down here, and here's his 10d6 charged bolt. Total 35, body 10. No delay adding anything up, no trying to work out what it is, what the effect is. You just literally see it. For killing attacks, same as we saw on the other controller, or on the dice roller itself, same set of results. These tools here in the combat record use the same roller. You just don't have to use the roller, it does it for you. And the important part is, although we've chosen to be looking at the roller, in theory we could be in the middle of the action, looking at our characters, working out what's going on, how people are moving, and even from all the way over here, making attacks. So in a second you'll see that the charge bolt hit for 3710. I can be sitting here, moving my character, looking at what's happening. I don't need to be going over there to do that. I'm here. So all of your attacks are there. In addition, I can open Roll Editor, and I can say, oh, okay, I need to make a new roll. I've just decided I'm going to do something different. Let's say I want to spread my beam with charged bolt, and I want to do it a lot for some reason. I can come into here, I can leave it as just a damage roll, make it 10, and actually I'm going to spread it always by 4, so I can make that 6. There we go. Alright, and then I can come in here and I can say spread charged bolt, and I can save that, and you'll see it appear here, 66. Click on it, 66, and it always happens. Let's say I wanted a to hit roll for the new spread charged bolt. I could come into here, I could literally put here +4 and click to hit, and that would give me my 4 OCV bonus for spreading the attack. And you can see there OCV went from 5 to 9 +4. So simple as that. These modify this one here for targeting rolls modifies the OCV. For dice rolls it modifies the dice. That's really important. There is no target, therefore it modifies the dice. For killing rolls it modifies the first dice, the main set of dice you're rolling, not the modifier. If you want to make a new killing roll, you literally come down to here, tick killing, and you put the stun multiplier in there and the dice modifier up here. So 2 different locations work for killing. If I go and want to do a to hit, I can click here, and then it becomes a to hit roll. And if I want to make a target roll, let's say a target roll 12 or less to hear something. Save that, and we've now got a targeting roll to hear something at 12 or less. And you can see there 8 less than 12 by 4 success. And so we can create new rolls. However, we can also edit them. These icons here enable you to click on them and then edit to here. So we can come into here, it's all presented there, and let's change that now to a 13 and resave it. And it now becomes, oh, I didn't change the save name, that's interesting, yes. So I'd have to alter this, there we go, to represent the 13. It did remember it, but it just didn't change that, because once it's auto-generated that once, it will assume you'll look after it. That's better. So we'll now make a roll, to hear roll, as a target of 13. You can also, if you want to hear to be higher up and more important to you, you can actually just move it up, or, and it says editing, move it down. I want it up 1, and then I save it, and then clear that, and it moved that one and stayed there. Simple as that. So this allows you to edit any of the roles in this section here and to create your own. So Phantom Pharaoh, interesting chap that he is, has effectively armour that requires a role. His Shield of Ra flies from above his head and blocks blows, but unfortunately it doesn't always manage it. Tries to though. So he would come in here and he would have a target of 14 or less. Shield of Ra, 3d6, and he saves that. And now he has Shield of Ra. Clicks the button and it makes his Shield of Ra roll. Fairly straightforward. Okay, so what you just saw was, to all intents and purposes, every single option that was an attack brought over for you. There are some caveats. The primary caveat is that roles that are combined and merged into one role, so let me give you an example, a compound power, really don't work well. I can't read them out of Herodesigner yet and get all of the information for the compound power. My suggestion for you is it will bring in the compound power because it knows it's got an attack in there, and then you edit it to whatever you manually need. As straightforward as that. It's a minor, you saw how quick it was, it takes less than a minute to do it and it will stay there for the whole game, so it's not going to go anywhere, and that will make things easier for you, and that will solve that problem. I'm kind of working towards trying to get a fix for that, but it's quite complex working out which powers in a compound power should be pulled out and which shouldn't, and how to get them. So if I get any success from that, you'll see that. Okay, now what does it look like for a GM? This is interesting. So as a base character, if I load them, I have a bunch of soldiers and a street thug. So let's pop them up. And let's load all of them, shall we? Make life interesting. And release them all. Now, you'll note that they don't appear to be appearing. Well, they are. They're all just stacked. So there they all are for you. Now, as you can see, the GM is a bit short of screen space. And when you're playing in the game, there's many more things to arrive that you haven't seen yet. So suffice to say, some careful arrangement will be beneficial. But when you open one of these all the way up, they're really quite long. And sometimes so long that they'll go off the screen. How do you deal with that? Well, the first thing is you've got the title bar up here enables you to right click on it and close all the tabs. It won't right click open all the tabs, it just closes them, and it's a quick way of getting all that information out of the way. Next one, how do you what do you want to do if you want to get rid of it totally? You left click and they all completely go. Like so. They're all gone. Yeah? Alright, so when you open them up, you can get through to the other stats, do what you want, and then the one that's not being used as the GM, you just click on the title bar and it shuts. So let's say I had dice rolls, manoeuvres, primary stats open, and I wanted to move on to Charge Crusader, or I wanted to get to the one underneath there. When it's not his turn, I just do that. When it's his turn again, I open it and I'm right back where I was. So you don't lose anything. If you right click, it will shut it all. So remember that. If you left click, it just closes. So we have all these wondrous tabs up. We now have various activities here. It could be happening, could be having combat. And that raises an interesting question. How do we do combat? Well, let's show you some of that as well. This is the turn controller, and once again you recognise that little green button in the corner. There we go. There's the turn controller. says here add opponents, non-combatants, and there's a reload button. So if I click that, you'll see it pulls every controller's character in. So if I move I can then move the street thugs and move them all up, all the ones that I want, including Charge Crusader. And these are players because they're in colour, so let's move a bunch of players up, and we'll leave the rest, they're not in this combat. Once you've got this here correct, oh, I don't want Soldier 7, you know, click, remove him. Yeah. Obviously, as we're not going to be playing with 7, 8 or 9, we get rid of them. And we click the green button to drop them back. And when you're ready, you click there to begin combat. And you begin the combat by going straight into turn 1, segment 12. Now, what also activates at the same time is the turn viewer, which has been lurking cunningly off screen. And there you go. So, you now have, as a GM, quite a lot going on your screen. Okay, so let's have a look at some of that. First thing to note is this is your current turn and segment. It gives you a summary here of who's held, who's phasing and who's aborted. It then tells you the combatants and non-combatants, and you can minimize the non-combatants to buy some more screen space. You can look at Charge Crusader, and you'll notice that he has a tick next to him, an up arrow at the end, and cunningly enough his next phase is right next to there. So you can see from a glance that his next phase is 3 in the next turn, and that he's active. That's what the white tick means. So if you look down here, anyone who's going to be going this go has a tick next to them, and he's got the white tick, which means technically he's the phasing player. Okay, so as the phasing player he goes, and the good thing about that is if this was a player's screen and ours, the current phasing player has a green box around them to tell them that they're currently phasing. You'll notice none of the other boxes have any colours. So if these were all minimised, he would stand out a mile. You'd know he was the one that was currently active, and you could just open him up and use him. Okay, let's have a look at how we would actually, or what we could actually do as a GM. First one is, well, do I use the player's phase? In other words, has he had his go? So I would make my turn, make my rolls, do whatever I wanted, and then I'd tick, click the tick to end the turn. If I wanted to hold, however, I come over to here, and if I left click, it holds for a whole phase, and right click for half a phase. And if I hover over here, I can see the segments he goes on in the next, sorry, the phases he goes on in the next 12 segments, his speed and his dexterity, of which the dexterity is always at the end. So let's make life interesting. He's going to have his turn. That's great, and he's done. And now it's the soldier's turn, and you'll notice soldier 6 has become highlighted. I can either drag him over and make him more central if I want, or I could just leave him in position and open him up and get to what I want him to do. And I can make my way through them all, and you'll see down here on the turn viewer that's just ticking through steadily, and the players can see the turn viewer potentially if you want them to, but they don't usually get to see the turn controller. So they know when they are and when they're going. So for instance here, green character knows that he's going now because he's got a tick. He knows that his next is recovery, then after that he's going on 6 and he's going on 12, and it's clear, and he can cooperate with his other colleagues to work out what they're going to do and in what order. We keep on going through, and soldier 2 for some reason decides to hold, so he holds. Note, he now gets a green tick and he turns yellow here. Why has he turned yellow? What it means is he's holding, so we can look and see immediately out of all of our people who's holding. We can also see down here that he's holding with a green tick, and over here with a green tick, and more importantly here we've got the way of spending that hold. Let's move through some of the other players. Let's say he's waiting for something, and they have their turns and move through, and then suddenly base character pops his way out and does something and comes within shot of Soldier 2. Soldier 2 immediately takes the turn by clicking the green, and you'll see there Soldier 2 used held phase from segment 12. So he activated and did whatever he wanted. So as the player would now roll his dice, you know, roll to hit, whatever he wants to do. And you can see there he rolled. Did hit anything DCV 3 or less. Unlikely to hit anybody, but it might do. Okay, so he's done. Close him again. He's ticked through and he's done and he's done. However, he just took a shot at yellow base character. To try and get out of the way, he aborts, and you click the X on the end, and you'll see that he aborted phase 12. He's got a red X, which means he doesn't go this go, and he's now lost his 12, and his next turn is still 6. But because he was still holding his turn, he hadn't used his phase this go, he aborted this phase's turn. Yeah, this phase. If, however, Soldier 2, when base character fires at Soldier 2 up here, uses his abort, he moves all the way up to 8 because he's already had his go this go. And we move through, and the turn is finished. And we can tell that because there's no more phasing people. Okay, so that number's gone down to 0, and the aborted is at 2, so we know 2 aborts. Up until then, I could not click on here, nothing would happen. Now all of the characters have phased and we're done. I can just literally step through and keep stepping through until it won't let me step through again. I'm trying to click, but it won't let me go, because what it's really telling me is Charge Crusader gets a go now, and we can see that he went on 3. So he takes his action, he's going to hold, and he goes into hold. You can see here players who've aborted are in red, so they know they've lost their next turn. And we move on again, and we get down to here, and you notice this is scrolling across while we're playing. So as things happen, they keep on scrolling across, they're moving all the way over. And there you go. So that should give you some idea from a GM's point of view what you're going to see on your screen, what you're going to see down here for controlling the combat, what you're going to see over here if you're a player, and how you would have visibility of this, and you'd be able to see when your friends are. And it's possible, as a player, that you will not be able to see the GM's various characters. And that's all based upon which team you're put in. If you put in diamonds, you will see other players, but not GM characters. If you put in spades, it's called learning mode. And once in spades, you would be able to see the turn controller and the turn viewer, and effectively it's a teaching tool for GMs, so that they can show people what's actually happening, how the combat works, how the turn works, and step newbies or new beginner players through and see what they can learn. Okay, lastly, how do you get out of combat? Well, there we go, we open up configuration, we just simply do end combat, and you'll see a little record there of absolutely everyone leaving the combat. And combat ends is added to the log. Right. Hopefully that was a fairly straightforward review of how you would load characters, how you would use them and use the various entries here and dice rolls, a simple overview of the role editor, and a review of the turn controller for how you move through combat. Unfortunately, because I've only got a single screen to demonstrate it, I can't show you what a player would see. To some degree. Let me see what I can do here. If I change and I become blue, you'll notice all those dialog boxes have gone. I can't see a thing as the blue player. What I can see, however, is the blue player's character. So I can... oh, I didn't find sold 10 in the notes. Sorry, didn't add it. Actually, yeah. So if I pop base character, which will do for demonstration, and I look here, I can see all the things that I can do here, and it's all the same for me, but I can't see what the GM sees. But I only have a single character to run. Most players tend to stack theirs over here, and open up almost everything that they could possibly require, and they've got the screen space, unlike the GM, to do so. So as you can see, that's a fairly good stack for a player to be rolling. And included at the bottom something I didn't touch on before, which is statuses. It's quite feasible for you to tick these depending upon the status of the individual. So if you go prone, you can tick. If you go stunned, you can tick. Stunned, knocked out and dying supersede each other. So if you're stunned and then get hit again and you're dying and you click dying, it will overwrite stunned. You'll just go to dying. You can check blind and deaf, you can click recovery if you're forcing your recovery, and custom if you want to have your own combat status record that you've agreed with the GM for what you want to do. So there is some flexibility. Later on there'll be a drop down, you can add more stuff, but not for the moment. As you can see, that's what that player sees. But you'll note I can't see anyone else's combat records, none of them. And that's by design. Only the GM gets to see that stuff. Players do not. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, please join us on the Discord and ask me directly. I'm more than happy to contribute my time to help anyone who has any questions. And have done that with a couple of people already, given them a hand, a walk through the system and talk to them about how to use it and walk them through with it. In addition to that, next time we'll go through a full phase, a full structure. So I'll show you how to get characters onto the board over here, how to measure, how to use the distance, and how to trigger the statuses actively in combat. But for now, that's most probably enough for a short tutorial. Thank you very much for your interest, and if you have any questions, reach out to me on the Discord or on Facebook if you're in the Facebook group, or if you look under the Hero System forum, there's a sub forum there where I've got an active post running for that. That's in order of preference, by the way. I generally prefer Discord because it's live and I can immediately give you answers rather than having to loop around and check things. Alright, thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.